Hey, want to see a 20-year-old clip of RFK Jr. trashing the future Trump administration?
And this particular government is the government that we have here in this country today, is a government of plunder. This is a government that represents itself as a government of values. But all of the values that they claim to embrace are just hollow facades that conceal the one value that they're really consider worth fighting for, which is corporate profit taking. They say that they're conservatives, but they have torn the conserve out of conservatism. They say that they like the free market, but they despise free markets. What they really fight for is corporate welfare, capitalism for the poor, but socialism for the rich.
Oh, wow. Is that RFK Jr. from 20 years ago talking trash about the American oligarchy? And in doing so, completely foreshadowing the Trump administration that he would eventually work for? The very same Trump administration that has overseen the most in-your-face transfer of wealth from the poor to the billionaires? He actually goes into more shocking detail later, and I'll show you that. But what happened to this guy besides the brainworm? Was this before the brainworm or after the brainworm? Was it ABW? Or BBW? You know what, just to be safe, I'm gonna Google BBW with the safe search off. Meanwhile, here's more from that clip of RFK exposing the playbook for Trump and his American predecessors and other famous fascists throughout history.
What happens when corporations take control of government? The first thing and the only thing they do is plunder. That is their whole objective. And, you know, we saw this during the fascist years in Europe. And when those leaders and Franco took power, the first thing they did is put industrialists in charge of the ministries. You know, Hitler was a right-wing, you know, Christian fundamentalist fascist who was absolutely, and his group was absolutely off the radar, political radar screen. People considered them nuts and, you know, and completely incapable of ever taking power. But they made these unholy alliances with industry money that started pouring money into their movements and gave them a political foothold. And when that took purchase and they got political power, they paid back industry by putting the industrialists in charge of all of the ministries. And what did they do? They enriched themselves by mounting small wars, taking no-bid contracts, and privatizing the commons.
All right, you see the playbook? 1, you be all weird and everyone thinks you're nuts. Nobody thought Trump stood a chance. Then, industrialists give him a ton of cash. And then they pay those billionaires back by putting them in charge of the ministries. And finally, like the brainworm living in RFK's skull, they plunder. Now, if you need proof that that happened, just look at the photos from Trump's inauguration, which is a veritable smorgasbord of gajillionaires.
The combined personal worth, not the market value of the stock of the companies they lead. I'm talking about the actual personal net worth of the billionaires seen in this image is estimated to be nearly $1 trillion, according to Forbes. The message seems to be, welcome to the new American oligarchy. This billionaire flex is a stark and damning illustration of the role that extreme wealth plays in Donald Trump's orbit. But understanding how we got here and how to rise from it requires us to zoom out from this image and this moment.
You know what else requires us to zoom out? Mark Zuckerberg's face. Good God, I need to get away from it. It's like one of those paintings that can steal your soul. But what is interesting about this is it's a mix of people that gave to Trump before he was king and people who gave money to him after he won the election. Here's open secret. SpaceX gave him $276 million. And as the disclaimer says on the bottom, that was from Elon Musk, the titan of that industry. And then, as RFK pointed out 20 years before, what happened? I wrote it down. He pays back the industrialists by putting them in charge of ministries. Which ministries? All of them. Elon Musk was put in charge of Doge, which had free reign over everything. And he used that power to weaken his regulators that oversaw his companies like SpaceX and Tesla. And when Trump unveiled his stupid golden dome, guess who's gonna get that contract? What you don't have to. Elon Musk's SpaceX is naturally in the lead to build Trump's giant compensation for his tiny testicles. But as Jon Stewart's about to point out in an interview with Bill Simmons, it's getting worse and worse by the day, because Trump doesn't care when you get on this bus, as long as you give him millions of dollars to do it.
But what you're seeing now is all must pay tribute to the king. And the price of that, the price of peace is different. You know, ABC had to pay $15 million. Bezos had to pay $40 million for a documentary on Melania. Zuckerberg had to pay. They just pay They just put money into the pot so that hopefully they don't get. They're paying. Like, what does that remind you of?
Michael
Protection
Corleone.
money, right? It's protection money. So ultimately, at the end of this, does Trump burn our country down for insurance money? Like, where are we headed?
It's not like Michael Corleone, actually, Bill, because Michael Corleone was a war hero. But like this kind of hostile takeover of everything that is supposed to protect us, i.e. the government and the media, has consequences. Jon Stewart references the massive settlements that these giant news organizations pay to just kind of get out of Trump's crosshairs, they hope, so that they can either just kind of get back to making money or avoid Trump's spiteful intervention to block their giant mergers and acquisitions. And the people who are actually good at their jobs and honoring their responsibility to the masses have to resign as the only way to make a statement and hopefully a tiny bit of a difference.
The reason why the guy from 60 Minutes and the reason why the head of CBS News left is it's not even about the money, which I think they've said is upwards of like $50 million. Imagine paying $50 million for nothing just to get somebody to approve a merger. A, it's bribery. But B, the reason they all left is part of the deal is they have to apologize. And in that moment, these people who have built careers on their excellence and their integrity had to look and go like, all right, well, I hope I've done well enough that I can weather this, but there's no way that I'm going to apologize for doing my job the way it's supposed to be done, just because this one guy is offended by it. Ultimately, what an awful precedent that these media companies have set. Now he'll go after Harvard and Comcast or whatever the hell else he does, because a policy of appeasement always leads to more conquest.
And no sector is safe. And listen to what RFK said 20 years ago, and I'll give you an example of what's happening now.
They say that they like property rights, but it's only when it's the right of a polluter to use his property to destroy his neighbor's property and to destroy the public property.
On the campaign trail, Trump requested $1 billion from oil execs at a fundraiser, and oil bigwigs opened their wallets for Trump. He then puts a billionaire real estate developer and software developer in charge of the Department of the Interior, and puts a guy in charge of the EPA who always votes against environmental protections, and then slash the hell out of its workforce.
They say that they like law and order, but that the first ones to let the corporate lawbreakers off the hook.
Trump has pardoned a shocking number of political allies, including his son-in-law's dad, and a massive tax cheat after his mom attended $1 million dinner, by the way. And this doesn't seem like it's wildly corrupt, but I think it's hilarious. The Chrisleys, his fellow reality TV stars, who are also giant fraudsters.
They say that they like local control and states' rights, but they only like those things when it means sweeping away the barriers or the obstacles to corporate profit taking at the local level.
The Republicans do this all the time. Most recently, Trump's big, beautiful bill could ban states from regulating AI for a decade, ban states from having the right to self-regulate, because all those people on the dais that I showed you earlier gave him millions and millions of dollars. We're just so cooked, man, and I'll leave you with this, just an observation about RFK. It's possible he's just trying to do his best, given the circumstances, to accomplish some of the goals he's been after for the last 3 decades. And I get why a lot of people like him, specifically white people, because he might be like the ultimate rich white person. Let me explain. He started out as just an environmental activist, part of the NAEA. He was like the guy who tried to get toxins out of the water. And that's great. But then it migrated into anti-vaxxerism. And that really encapsulates some of the whitest stuff you can be. Because white people, they don't want to die for stupid reasons. In this case, stupid reasons being pollution in there. Like, that's annoying. But if they are gonna die for a stupid reason, they want it to be their idea, right? So that's like camping, skydiving. They're like, oh, my life is so perfect. I want to pay money to give myself problems we've already solved. And the extreme version of that is anti-vaxxing. Like, where like we've solved smallpox, but these guys are somehow gonna convince themselves that it's better to have the problem of smallpox even though we solved it. And if they're gonna die, they want it to be not from a stupid idea that someone else had. They want it to be from a stupid idea that they themselves had. And that is what you get when you support RFK. And what you get from me if you watch these videos is really awesome, frequently old videos that I find in the archive. And this playlist, if you go to my playlist on this channel, it's chock full of that. We got Reagan, that they love, but he's like hosting a drag show for kids. We got Jon Stewart destroying Tucker Carlson and basically creating his origin story. We got a lot here, so I want you to go check that out. Thanks for watching. Bye.